So you're thinking of moving to Buena Vista, Colorado? Well, in this video, I'm going to be going over several pros and cons of living in this small mountain town. And if you stick around to the end, I will go over several cons you might not have considered. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Please be sure and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so the next time an informative video comes up, you're the first one to know. My name is Monica McCarthy, a realtor that specializes in Salida and Buena Vista, Colorado and surrounding areas. I get calls all the time from people like you who are interested in moving to this area. So whether you're wanting to move in a few weeks or a few months, please reach out to me. My information is in the description below, and let's have a conversation and find out how I can help you make a smooth transition to this small mountain community. But first, let's talk about Buena Vista, Colorado, the pros and cons of living here. Before I get into all those details, I want to point out the pronunciation of this town. If you speak any Spanish or are familiar with the pronunciation of Spanish words, you will likely be reading this and thinking it's pronounced Buena Vista, Colorado. Well, locals pronounce it Buena Vista. I want to get that out of the way here. It took me a little bit when I first moved here to get used to that. I have a really fun video with a local historian that tells us the whole scoop as to why locals call it Buena Vista, Colorado, or even Buny. So in this video, I'm going to be calling it Buena Vista, Colorado, because if you move here, you will too. All right, let's get to it. The first pro of living in Buena Vista, Colorado is the location compared to other mountain towns. I'm going to probably compare Buena Vista to Salida a lot in this video because they're very close together. They're about 20-30 minutes apart. They're pretty similar towns. They were both settled in the late 1800s because of the railroad. So they have a lot of similarities. So I'm going to cover those similarities and differences and kind of the pros and cons as well. So the first pro would be the location. It is a little bit closer to the Denver metro area, as well as to Summit County. So if you are somebody who perhaps want a second home here and you live in the Denver metro area, you want access to the amenities of the Denver metro area, like the airport and the malls and all of those things, Buena Vista is a little bit closer. Then if you go the other direction towards I-70 into Summit County, you are closer to the access to Summit County over there as well. Different direction, but you're a little bit closer to the access of that part of the state as well. So a lot of people choose Buena Vista just so they have a little bit closer access to the cities. Now you still are in a small mountain town, just like in Salida, so you have some travel time to get to those metro areas. Another huge pro is the community. This is something that Salida has as well. It has that amazing small town feel. When people ask me, which one's better to live in, honestly, both communities are fantastic. You will be able to integrate really well into both if that's something you're interested in. You've got events, you've got friendly people, you've got the small town feel. So the same thing where you recognize people after you live here for a while, particularly if you get involved with any community activities. There are a lot of community activities. There's a lot of events, particularly in the summertime. So the people in Buena Vista really is a huge draw to the area. They even have a cool event that they close off Main Street and have a huge community meal. They put tables and chairs out in the middle of the street and people come together. So, I mean, if that's not small town living, I don't know what is. It's quite heartwarming. So you have that, the people who have lived there a while, you have people who have moved in, and there's just a lot of people that care about that community. And like Salida, you have a lot of people that have lived there that do live there year round. You don't have that transient feel as some mountain towns can feel that, they're only coming for ski season and then they leave. So there are people who live there year round and really care about the growth and the preservation of this beautiful mountain town. Another pro to living in the small mountain town of Buena Vista is the cute downtown area. So like I said, just like Salida, it was settled in the late 1800s when the railroad, it was a stopping point for the railroad. So there's really cool buildings downtown. There's the old railroad that's no longer in use. And so you have some of that historic feel. It's not as big as Salida. Salida actually is a historic district. And so the buildings in Salida are preserved, and there are significantly more of them. In Buena Vista, they have not been preserved. And so some of them are not remaining, some of them are. So that's something that is kind of a pro. The downtown area has that cute feel. The con is the buildings are not as protected, and so that might not remain as long as Salida will. But you do have a really cute downtown area. Another pro to living in Buena Vista, Colorado are the outdoor activities. This is similar to Salida, Colorado. Both areas attract outdoor enthusiasts. And so you've got the people who like to mountain bike. There are a lot of trails in the Buena Vista area. I honestly am not sure which has more. They both have a lot, kind of just in different areas. Salida has some that are a little bit closer to the downtown area, whereas Buena Vista there's some kind of downtown and then kind of spaced out around the area. So you've got a lot of trails for both hiking and mountain biking, which is a huge draw. You have the Arkansas River going right through town, just like in Salida. Both towns actually have their primary streets kind of end at the river, which is cool. So there's a lot of river activities. There's whitewater rafting that goes through there. There's kayaking. They have events related to the river in the summertime. So there's just a lot of draw to that. There's also, and related to the outdoor activities, we have, Buena Vista has a few hot springs. So there are 4 in Chaffee County as a whole. Salida and Buena Vista are both part of Chaffee County. So Salida has one. There's one in Nathrop that's in between Buena Vista and Salida. And then there are 2 hot springs in Buena Vista. They kind of just right outside of town. So that's a cool draw. You have a lot closer, easier access to some really cool outdoor hot springs. I guess I should say warm outdoor hot springs. Another thing is you're not as close to the Monarch Ski Mountain as you are in Salida. You are closer to Leadville, which has Cooper Mountain, and then also Copper just over the mountain pass near off of I-70 is really close as well. So you have a little bit closer access to those. And then if you head the other direction on 50, you're about like 45 minutes away from Monarch Mountain. So you're still pretty close. So you have a few other options besides just Monarch. Not as close as Salida, but then closer to other options as well. So a lot of people who are into skiing and snowboarding that's a great place to be, to have access to those things as well. Additionally, in regards to the outdoors, I don't want to forget to mention the 14ers. So in Colorado, we have mountains that are over 14,000 feet, and they are referred to as 14ers. And some are easier to access than others. It's a whole thing. If you're planning on doing it, please do research on doing it safely. It's not something you just go out and do. But in Buena Vista, you're closer to more of them. You're closer to about 12 of them. They're called the Collegiate Peaks. And so that's really cool to be that close to these. I mean, they're gorgeous. If you don't want to climb up them, you can sit back and appreciate them. But it's a huge draw in the summertime for people to come out and hike those 14ers and summit and, take a big selfie on top of the mountain. And if you've never been on top of a 14,000 foot mountain, it's pretty amazing. I do recommend it. But again, look about gear. Make sure you don't go up past noon. You want to be coming down because you can get those afternoon thunderstorms, and there's no trees up there, so you don't want to be the tallest thing at the top of a mountain when there's a thunderstorm, trust me. So side note there. And another pro to living in Buena Vista, Colorado is a really cool new part of the community that's only been around for a few years. It's called South Main. It's kind of its own community next to Buena Vista. So it's along the river. There's a boutique hotel there that has a really good restaurant in it. And then there's a lot of houses and townhomes, and kind of feels like a European luxury area, just walking distance from downtown Main Street area in Buena Vista, which is a little bit more rustic, historic feel. So it's newer properties there, some to varying degrees of affordability, but there's also a live music area. They call it the Lawn. And so it's an area where they host live music in the summertime. There's also events there as well. And it's right next to the river. There's a really nice trail that goes along there to the downtown area and through there. So you can walk into town from the river. And that's a really cool spot. If you've never gone to an outdoor concert there, it's a smaller venue. I went for the first time last year and I had an amazing experience. It was a really cool place to see some outdoor music. Shifting to some cons of living in Buena Vista, Colorado. One of them is similar to Salida, is the access to healthcare. So the main hospital in this region is Heart of the Rockies Regional Medical Center, and that is located in Salida. And Salida is about 20 minutes or so away from Buena Vista. So Buena Vista does not have a hospital in it. There is a walk-in clinic. There's some satellite offices for a few different doctors' offices. So there is some healthcare there, but anything emergency-based would go to Salida or another hospital, because you are a little bit closer, like I said before, to Summit County and to Denver. You would be going to those places. So that's something to keep in mind if you're somebody who needs to be close to a hospital for your medical reasons for you or your family members. Buena Vista is further away from that. So keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind for living in Buena Vista, Colorado is whether or not the layout of the town appeals to you. So a big draw for coming to this area, like I said, are the outdoor options. In Salida, it's really bikeable. So you have a lot of people who don't drive their cars very much because they can bike just to town and around. And that is an option in Buena Vista. It's just not quite as accessible because it's not as concentrated. So Salida is a little bit more on a grid with neighborhoods surrounding it, whereas Buena Vista, you have the Main Street area on the east side of Highway 24. And there are some neighborhoods like South Main that I just mentioned is there. And there's a few other neighborhoods on that side of the highway. And then the other side of the highway, there are more neighborhoods, and then it extends out further closer to the mountains to the west. So you have a lot of neighborhoods that offer more space, and you're really close to the mountains, so you have those amazing mountain views. And so what's nice about being there is you can be just outside of Buena Vista BV, as some people call it as well. You're really close to the downtown BV, and you can easily drive by car. Depending on how comfortable it is, you are crossing a highway to get across into the main downtown area. So that's, just to understand that's the layout of it, which could appeal to some and maybe not others. The downtown area isn't as big as Salida as well. So you do have kind of the main street, and the offshoots, not as much, a little bit, but Salida has a bigger downtown area and more historic buildings, as I mentioned. So not a huge con, but just kind of a preference thing and kind of to keep in mind in terms of what type of place you want to be in. Another consideration that's more on the con side is there is a state prison in Buena Vista. So when you are driving from the Denver area or south, like past Salida on Highway 50, and you're driving into BV on Highway 24, you are driving past a state prison. It's not huge. It's not a huge eyesore, but it is there. It's obvious. It is an employer in town, which is a positive in some ways. But for others, there haven't been any problems. It's fine. But just, keep that in mind, something that some people don't prefer, or to, have that as soon as you get to town. Another thing to consider are the amenities. Now, Salida did have this as a con as well. You are in a small mountain town. There are no malls. There's no Costco. There's no Home Depot. There's no Target. There's not even a Walmart in BV. So a lot of locals in BV drive to Salida to go to Walmart because at least you have some stuff there. So there are fewer big box kind of options in BV. They have, we've got small businesses. You can fill a lot of the needs that you have. There are a few grocery stores. So there's not nothing. However, you might need to go to the city or use Amazon more if you're there, depending on what your needs are and your preferences are. So just like Salida, fewer amenities, and then depending on the type of amenity, perhaps fewer than Salida. Although I will say the restaurants in BV are, both Salida and BV are small towns. There's not a ton of restaurants in either place. BV started to have a few more pretty good restaurants, so it's kind of a preference thing. When I live in Salida and I like to go to BV to try out their restaurants, and it's nice to switch it up sometimes. So between the two of them, it's decent, but either way, you have fewer options as a whole on restaurants. And another consideration would be the weather. So it is in the mountains, there's snow, there's winter weather. It is still kind of part of the banana belt. If you watch the Salida video, I talked about how the weather in Salida is more mild compared to mountain towns. That's also true in Buena Vista. It's a valley surrounded by mountain ranges, so you don't get as much snow as you would like in Breckenridge or Keystone or any of those mountain areas where you're at a really high elevation and, places where snow doesn't melt a lot throughout the winter. Snow melts. So you will have some snow days and some days that you need to shovel snow. That's true. In Buena Vista, it's slightly colder than Salida, depending on the day, and slightly windier depending on the day. Just the other day, I was talking to somebody, they had just driven from BV and they're like, oh, it feels warmer here than it was in BV. So, anecdotally like that, if you look at the weather app at the same time, I think they're relatively similar. So, but it does appear that on many days it can be windier and a little bit colder in BV. So if that's something that is a huge issue for you, then maybe lean towards Salida. But if it's, it's gorgeous mountain area, and if you want to be near the mountains and not have to deal with all of the snow, BV is still an amazing option for you. It is a really cute, friendly, accessible mountain area. You've got the small town feel, and it really is truly a wonderful place to live. So if you have any other questions about living in Buena Vista or BV, Colorado, just shoot me a message. I'm also curious if you have any insight into this. I could go on and on about pros and cons. So if you have anything important to add, please do write a comment. I'm curious what you think. And thank you so much for watching. And please subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications so you're notified the next time a video comes up. If you're interested in living in the Buena Vista, Salida, Colorado area, please reach out to me. I talk to people like you all the time. That's what I do. That's what I love to do. So look at my contact information below and let's connect. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'm Monica McCarthy, a realtor in Salida, Colorado and surrounding areas.